afternoon, Patriots. This is the American Vision, broadcast on the TLBTV network and brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm your host, Bill Muckler, and I'm coming to you from my home studio in Cocoa, Florida, on America's beautiful Space Coast. And today I'm really excited. I got a special guest, Jenny Coffey, and she has so many things going on that I don't even know if I could remember all of them or even enumerate all of them in the time we have. So Jenny's coming to us from, I believe, somewhere around Manchester, New Hampshire. So Jenny, welcome to the American Vision.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And yes, I am in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is nice, but a heck of a lot colder than where you are.
Yeah,
we should do this in person this time of year, you know? I mean, I would sacrifice, traveling out of the snowy country for you, of course.
I wish I would have known that. You could have come down here. It's 75 today.
I'm going to hold you to that.
And clear skies. Oh, we welcome guests. We love to have guests. And now, I don't even know where to start because I know you've written a book. You write articles for a magazine. You've been a member of the state legislature in New Hampshire. Where would you like to start telling us about yourself and maybe give us a little background of how you got into this? All of a sudden, 5 years where you got involved in so many things, it's just unbelievable.
Let's see. My dad or my grandmom would say I was born with a big mouth in Boston, Mass, and that's where it started. And I never shut up ever since I was born. And that's pretty accurate, actually. I kind of always had the activist spirit going, and it started really, really young, and it just kind of kept going. And in 2005, I had moved to New Hampshire and became politically involved, and would go and testify on bills. I learned all about really how our government worked. I mean, and to be an active participant, to not just sit there and yell at the screen and go, oh, I don't like the way they voted on that, but actually go up there during a public hearing and say, this is what I want from you, my elected official, and these are the reasons why I want you to vote this way, and hold them accountable. In doing that, it kind of steamrolled into becoming involved with an organization back then that was called the Second Amendment Sisters. And we were basically a family of women who were out to help other women not be victimized in any way and be able to defend themselves. And that steamrolled into getting involved with more legislation, to the point where I ended up running for public office and ended up becoming a state representative. I served on a transportation committee and as the Republican whip for transportation. And my second term, I was the vice chair of commerce and chair of the Business and Banking Commission. And oh gosh, I got to help make sure that there were automatic external defibrillators in all our public schools, things like that, which was a lot of fun for me. And it got me more and more involved. I became a volunteer EMT for my town when I found out there wasn't enough medical personnel. And that was what I did for a living. And then that kind of fell into me accidentally finding out that my state had some really crazy laws when it came to knives.
Yeah, tell us about how you got involved in knives, because you're an EMT and I guess you're out in some pretty severe cold weather, icy weather, and what happened?
Oh yeah, well, it was like a 2 a.m. call. I got up, I get dressed, I put my gear on like anybody else, and I had a pocket knife like any other EMT. And I hadn't really paid much attention to quality knives back then. I mean, I didn't know anything at all. And I slipped on this person's driveway, fell down, and the blade opened up in my pocket and actually went through my gear and cut into my leg, which is a really big deal in EMS. Our gear is our protective shield, our skin, like as much as a firefighter's gear is to them and EMT's gear is. It protects us against bodily fluids or other fluids we could come in contact with, like gasoline or oil or, things on an accident. And I fell. The blade opened up in my pocket, cut me open. And that made me angry. You know, so now I was like, all right, I need a better tool. I was mad at this tool, you know, how dare it ruin a very expensive pair of gear and then of course, you know, cut me in the process. And I found this really great blade that was made by Benchmade, and it was what was referred to as an auto knife or a switchblade or a switch knife, depending on where you are in the world. And it was legal for me to have it as an EMT on my person, but it was not legal for me to have it on my person when I was off duty, and nobody could actually sell it to me unless I decided to go hunting and climbed up into a tree on a tree stand and traded with another hunter up there. That would be legal. But then when I got out of the tree stand and started walking to my car, I would then be illegal again, facing like a year in jail and thousands of dollars in penalties. That's how insane the law was. So that, of course, led to me introducing legislation to remove these archaic laws. And I thought it was going to be a little bill under the radar, no big deal. I was serving in the minority, so I talked to colleagues, and I made the bill bipartisan. That, you know, so it wasn't about partisanship. This was just about, let's be smart in law. And my argument was pretty simple. You created this law before I was born in the 1950s, during a time when people were afraid of switch knives and the Jets and the Sharks, you know, I mean, West Side Story, everybody's had to read that. That's where these laws came from. And it was street crime or gangs, you know, that was where it took place. And we have plenty of law in the book. We have law in the book that says if you use something to try and kill somebody else, it then becomes a deadly weapon. That could be a statue, that could be a book, a lamp. There was an incident involving a kid with a Christmas tree stand who almost killed his father. And he was charged with deadly weapon charges. So the need to have an individual law was just not needed. And the committee saw that. And what ended up happening was really weird. A number of organizations in the Second Amendment community actually came out opposed to the legislation. They were concerned that somehow this was going to alter their gun rights, which was insanity. The Second Amendment sisters were on board from day one. They were all about supporting it. The American Knife and Tool Institute's another great organization that was about it. But we needed average people, right? And I literally ended up with a list of 125 different jobs or hobbies that can use an automatic knife. One that you can safely deploy with your finger, and it locks open. It's not going to close on your hand if you're in a hard use situation. If I'm trying to cut you out of a tangled rope in the water off of your boat and save your life, that's a hard use situation. I'm going to be cutting and cutting. I need a blade that's going to work. Maybe I need a blade that's going to open with one hand because my other hand is holding you up for air. And I'm trying to cut you free. I need a functional quality tool. And so do a lot of people. We ended up with a big fight. It ended up becoming this international thing. And my little known bill that I thought I could sneak under the radar turned into the beginning of knife freedom. And we ended up getting the bill through with unanimous consent in both the House and the Senate. And it was signed into law by a Democratic governor. And the following year, we went for preemption, which removed all the little laws that existed in a few towns in my state. We can talk about that if you want, about the little known laws that'll get you. And yeah, that ended up causing me to become, we like to say knife enthusiast because that sounds a lot nicer than addict. But collecting knives is a hobby all into itself, and you can appreciate the craftsmanship, the technology that goes into these knives. And it was really talking about the technology that helped other legislators see why these laws were archaic and we didn't need them on the books anymore.
And you describe yourself as a knife enthusiast, and I think of you as a knife expert, which you deny. But, you know, this got you into, you wrote a book, Knives, Lipstick, and Liberty, and you also write for Knife Magazine and Automatic Knife magazine. So you really,
Yep.
you
And
really
I've written for
jumped
Blade
into
magazine
this.
as well. Yeah, it developed into a fun thing. I mean, and what I like to do is I like to share the stories about the different makers or things that are going on around the world or the country where people are making an effort to change laws. For example, there's a couple of white papers that came out from the American Knife and Tool Institute where there are efforts being made in Washington state to change their laws because auto knives are illegal, yet they have a couple of really great knife makers out there. And if you change this law, you're going to increase productivity of those companies, which is an increase in jobs, which is an increase in retail sales, which is an increase in consumer confidence. So you're benefiting your state, your community by changing these old and archaic laws. Vermont state is working to change their laws. And we need our legislators to hear from your listeners, the people that are watching you, the people that care about what's going on in their world. You need to pay attention because as a lawmaker, after spending 4 years in the state legislature, I served on the Speaker of the House's Transition Committee. I had roles in high leadership. I can tell you that the voices that impacted my committee the most were the voices of those who lived within our state, worked within our state. This is where they raise their kids. This is where they go to school. Those are the voices that matter the most than bigwigs flying in from Washington, D.C. or somewhere else to come tell us how we're supposed to do law in our state. I can say that on both sides of the aisle, there were far more legislators more interested in that, especially here, where legislators are not beholden so much to the lobbyists as they are in other places. I'd love to see that kind of law change. I'm in favor of the racetrack outfit, so the lawmakers have to wear a race uniform with all the patches of people who were giving them money. So when we go talk to them about our issue, we get to see who's giving them money.
Mhm.
I'm in favor of that. I believe in true citizen legislature, and I believe that's what I did. And then I did what our founders intended. I went home. I didn't stay up there forever. And because I've seen it myself, even here, people that have been up there for too long are too far removed from the public, and they're making policy that they don't really understand the ramifications of.
And so it sounds to me like you really did some great work, and not only just in New Hampshire, but maybe laid the
Oh,
groundwork
yeah.
for what could happen in other states.
I've helped change laws in a number of other states. A lot of fun. Alaska, Maine, Georgia. I love getting to do that. I love getting to work with people. One of my favorite things to get to do is whenever anybody asks me to consult in helping people prepare themselves to go speak in front of their legislature and teach them how to do it from the heart and soul and not from lobbying point of view, and how much more effective that kind of communication is with our legislature than the tried and true that everybody keeps doing and fails. I'm all for let's change it up, and that's how we're going to win. And that falls into what I write when I write about laws. There's a number of articles that are out there floating right now. So you're going to start seeing more coming out with Knife Magazine, Blade Magazine, Auto Knives Magazine, and IPM Nation itself. IPMNation.com is my baby.
Mhm.
Um, and I do that with my partner, Matt Connerton. And he and I love what we've built, which is a real free speech news, radio, and TV international station. And I take great pride in that, in the sense of it is real free speech. When I say that, I mean that our hosts are not the ones footing the bill. We count on other people to donate, to support, to buy ad time, to become sponsors, to keep our platform going. And that is a platform of real, true free speech. Our only prohibition is bigotry and hate. You want to talk about the world is round? Go for it. The world is flat? Go for it. Psychics, politics, news, music, arts, entertainment, anything you can think of, you come to us and we check you out and it looks like you're going to be a good fit, we'll give you that airtime. And I don't know of any other station internationally or nationally that really gives people who have a voice, who have something to offer at the table. Maybe it's about medicine or healthcare or women's rights or family rights, parental rights. There's so many issues that we all care about. And there are so many great people with a voice out there, and it's because they don't have the money that they don't get heard. And this enables people to have their voices heard without having to have a giant pocket behind them of cash in order to afford to buy that airtime, which is what happens. And people don't realize 90 probably, and you would know too, probably 98% of stations out there, the hosts have to buy the time to get aired.
Yes. And when you're talking about a wide range of subjects for Matt Connaughton, he even had me on as a guest, which I really enjoyed. And it was just such a pleasant interview. And it really wasn't actually an interview. It was just, we just talked back and forth. And he asked me about my favorite subject, which is my book, 2020, A Clear Vision for America. So I was really excited about it. And I try to listen every day when I can when he comes on, and I guess
Oh, that's awesome.
time it's on from 4 to 6, and it's easy to find. You can listen to it on Facebook, and you can
Yep.
call in.
Yep, and IPMNation.com. You can go to the Live One radio channel, and you can listen to Matt Connaughton Unleashed every day there, 5 days a week. He's live. He's on 95.3 FM here in Manchester, New Hampshire. We're about an hour south of, or north, I should say, of Boston. So it's a great market to be in. And I love it because he has like an open door type policy, and that you never know where the conversation flow is going to go based on what's going on in a day or who's calling in. And I loved your interview. I know that he wants to have you back on again. You're an amazingly great interview. And
Well,
I'm
thank
so
you.
glad that you and I crossed paths. And this is the accidental thing that happens that I love, because I came across what you do, your writings, and in that found that you offered an amazing voice out there, and all you lacked was more syndication to get out there into front of more people and have more people hear about your book 2020 and have more people hear about you and your show. And being able to bring you into the IPM Nation family is huge in that way. And now we're expanding with the news section, which is going to be everything from I have a love for fiction and poetry too. So there's going to be that going on. I'm also writing with a friend of mine. His name is Alan, and you'll meet him in the staff rooms. Alan Herbert is a male breast cancer survivor. He would make a great guest for you. 1 in 100,000 men will get breast cancer, and he and I met because I'm a breast cancer survivor. And he wrote a book called The Pink Unicorns of Breast Cancer, where he wrote and discussed being a male breast cancer patient. It's not an unusual thing when you think about that number, 1 in 100,000. That's a considerable amount of men. Yet, even modern medicine in the 21st century bills it as a woman's disease. Men don't check their pecs. And often when their cancer is found, it's too late to treat. They're found in very advanced stages and have to go for very aggressive therapies, when we should be, my son knows mom had breast cancer and mom's grandma had breast cancer. So he knows he needs to keep an eye on himself. He's already had his genetic testing done as well to ensure that he didn't carry a genetic marker. So IPM Nation for me is a platform that allows me to talk about anything at any time. It may be knife freedom. It may be talking about breast cancer or having reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which is a rare disease that I have, and or talking about women's rights and freedoms. I mean, we're still living, people like you and I we get to live in the free states of the United States. But I watch documentaries of women who are in Pakistan, who are in India, who are in Saudi, who are stripped of their rights because they are women,
Mm-hmm.
who cannot leave their home and travel without permission of their male guardian, and that could be their 10-year-old son. It's still prevalent today, and we need to talk about it. We need to talk about our healthcare systems, and when I teach people how to be proactive in advocating for their own healthcare or advocating for a loved one's healthcare. If you know how to do it, you get better care. It's sad. It should be our medical community holding our hands, but it isn't. So we need to be that voice. And that to me is the glory of everything that I get to do on a daily basis, is sharing all these different voices. And some of them are just goofballs. I mean, you've seen some of our shows, or
Yeah.
they're total goofballs. And they're
And,
just there to make you laugh.
and some of the call-ins are priceless.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, forever and a day, unfortunately. I would love to see more creative call-ins. I'm tired. Ordering a pizza, really? Can't you come up with something better than that if you're going to call in with something and try and be the wise guy? Give me something good,
Mhm.
Give me something I can play with. Like call in and tell me that you're an alien or something, give me something we can have a good conversation on. All right. Or talk to me about being a sovereign person and how well that did for you on that traffic stop. I want to hear it. Ordering a pizza to me is just like so boring, or playing or saying a swear. It's like, to me, it's like calling somebody and asking them if the refrigerator is running. It's old, it's antiquated. Give me something new and, and inventive. And that's part of too what I think I like about, and you're involved in, and you are forever and always going to be an IPM Nation original creative writing staff member, and to be able to bring all those different voices, whether it's a fictional story about aliens or somebody with what they say is a real life account. I'm not going to pass judgment, but I get to give you a platform where you get to say all of that without being censored or edited or FCC'd to death. You get to really put your voice out there. And that's why I love it so much. And I hope that in people hearing this message, if I can leave anybody with anything, go to ipmnation.com. And on ipmnation.com, you can go to the contact form. You can see the phone number, get an ad, see a show that you like. They like your show. They can sponsor your show. And that benefits you as well, to help keep this platform going, but not only keep it going, keep it growing. This is the media of the 21st century. Media of the 21st century is online all the time, 24/7, 365. It is not listen to your news at 6 p.m. and get, maybe 10 minutes of actual news, and then there's like 5 minutes of sports, and then there's like 5 minutes of, oh, the Maple Shacks are being open today because, that's life changing. Or what Matt would call first world problem. Because he has a saying where he talks about, he wishes people would get upset about non-first world problems, like hunger, mass death, abuses, things like that, things that might actually have to do with preserving the human race and perpetuating our kind, unless we're planning on just going extinct out of our own stupidity, which I do wonder sometimes.
I think there's a few of us wonder about that. In fact, today, when we see what's happening today, we're kind of wondering, what's going to really happen to us in another 20 or 30 years. Anyway, you talk about all these various things and stories and so forth. And you probably have some great stories from, your Knife Magazine articles, or could you share a few of those with us?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, I'll show it. Well, I want to share one that's very important to me. A few years ago, I wrote an article for Blade Magazine, and it was called "Knives Save Lives." And the reason that I brought this story to the forefront was that the it was a terrible situation. There was an accident in California on a highway. The cars caught fire at the accident. There was a child in a car seat, and nobody could get the child out because the seat belt was so hot to the touch. They couldn't get the belts off. Nobody had a knife. And the baby died. And the baby didn't have to die. There were people there. They could have got this baby out, but for lack of a tool, this child died. So I said, no, this can't happen. So I literally went to the industries and said, I want you to be involved. And I still find it frustrating, and I still push for it. I've gone to the automotive industry, and I wrote an article about it, and that was in Blade magazine. And I went to the knife industry, and I said, look at, you guys need to work together. The automotive industry likes to give us, a little ice scraper with the logo on it. It's about yay big. They gave me one of these things. I'm 5'4", okay? They gave me one of these things when I bought a Durango. What am I going to scrape off with that? Where does it go? In the back of the car. Nobody sees it. But give me a knife that maybe clips onto the seatbelt or up under the visor that can be used in an emergency. That I'm likely to leave out. Put your logo on that. Get our auto dealers to be more proactive in public safety by giving you something that's a useful tool. I mean, you live in Florida. They're not going to give you an ice scraper, but they probably give you some floor mats, or they throw in something stupid like that. And usually you change it out because you don't like what they give you. But a tool, you'd be more likely to keep in place. So I wrote that article, and I still advocate for it to this day. The American Knife and Tool Institute is very supportive of my work to try and advocate that we change how our industries work in automotive, in ATV. There are so many areas that a knife can literally save a life, that by putting them out there and having those tools available to us makes a difference. Do you remember the guy who got his arms stuck in the rocks when he was free climbing, and nobody knew he was climbing, and he had to cut his own arm off to save his life?
Yeah, that happened out west. I remember that.
Okay, that man, it took him 2 days to open the knife because it was a manually opening knife. Had he have been under the law allowed to have an auto knife, he could have pressed a button, it would have locked open, and he could immediately started the horrific thing he had to do to save his life. But for 2 days, he worked to literally open the blade. The simple difference of that technology could have been the end of him. He was lucky, and he was heroic beyond measure. I can't imagine even being in that situation. But I can look at it now in hindsight and say, if he had had access to a better tool, there may have been, maybe he could have been saved sooner, or maybe something could have been done. I don't know. But I know that there's at least a 2-day window in there that wouldn't have existed by simply working to try and open the blade. I love getting to work with people all around the country and even in other countries to talk about this, to teach people how to talk about it, how to advocate. I love doing that kind of consulting. It's a lot of fun for me. And writing about it is fun in that I like sharing the stories. Recently, I've been talking to this great knife maker, Ross Tyser, Tyser, in case you're curious. He makes some incredible kitchenware and beautiful teak wood cutting boards that, for somebody like me who has, I have lymphedema from breast cancer, and I also have RSD, which is a form of neuropathic dystrophy. So sometimes for me, doing things is hard. But so for me, having a blade that's easier to work with, or that the center of gravity is more centered, that I'm not having to use as much pressure, lets me help out in the kitchen a little bit. And that's a little bit of freedom that you can give somebody with a disability that matters. So now I'm also doing knife reviews, and I'm looking at them not just from an EMS, emergency medicine technician standpoint, but also as a painter cutting through my canvas, or getting to help out in the kitchen and cook with a disability. Being able to look at knives from that perspective, I think adds something new. And I'm a woman. Okay, I'll throw that out there too. That matters too. My hand is smaller than your hand. What feels good in your hand may not feel so great in mine. So when I'm looking at a knife as a woman, I'm looking at it as, how does it feel in my hand? Or is there something that could be done differently on that grip that would make it more comfortable? So I think the reviews that I'm providing are giving a new perspective and a different perspective than the atypical expert knife who knows the steel and what gauge and what grade and what heat temperature. Yes, those things are important for the makers to share, but it's also really important for us as the enthusiasts, as the people that use them, to give feedback to each other and to the makers as to what kind of
Mhm.
technology we would like to see in the future.
So that's pretty much what you're writing about and advocating about. And I mentioned before, and I don't know if you want to talk about this because you said it was some time ago, but would you like to tell us about Knives, Lipstick, and Liberty?
So knives, lipstick, and liberty. I'm looking down, and I apologize for that because my power cord is telling me that I might lose you, and I'm a little panicked on it.
Don't worry about it. This is we're doing great.
Well, Knives, Lipstick, and Liberty was written a lifetime ago, and it really was a lifetime ago. But it basically takes a look at how I changed the knife laws in the state of New Hampshire and started the knife freedom movement here, from a very unlikely place of just being a female emergency medical service technician, working in the field, and just so happened I was the state legislature, just so happened that this happened to me, and I found out about how to change the law. So the book chronicles a little bit about how I started to become involved in political issues and more involved in advocacy as a mother, as a woman, as a self-defense advocate, um, to to a lot of different things, to anywhere that there was a need for advocacy for a voice. I have a big mouth and I put it to good use. And that's what my family would say. They called me Big Mouth Junior at one point. Now Junior's my son and I'm senior. So
Yeah.
it's a family joke, but we're also very proud of the positions that we take and the fact that we're willing to take that public stand. My son was in Time magazine at the age of 17 taking a public stand, and I'm very proud of that advocacy. The book talks about how anybody can be an advocate. You don't have to be somebody special. There's nothing about me that's special except my big mouth and my willingness to just keep talking is the only thing different about me than somebody else. And when you get over that hump and that fear and you realize that you have a power and that, yes, truly a small group of believing individuals who are truly working for something can affect meaningful change, not only in their own lives, but in the lives to come and the generations to follow, that's a powerful tool. And to share that tool and to teach other people how to do it is a gift that I believe that I have a responsibility to continue sharing. So even though having this incurable disease, they call it the suicide disease, and I say that openly because there aren't that many of us out there, and to the rare zebras out there like me, I want them to know that just because that happened to me, I'm no longer an EMT. I had to give up my career. I'm not in the legislature, but I'm still effective. I still matter. I can have a day where I'm bedbound, but that doesn't stop me from talking to my computer and then laughing later when I see how it translated my New England accent. It's really interesting how the word car, I'll try and say it appropriately, versus car, which is how we say it, gets translated into spell check. So I have some fun with that. Or, maybe it's talking to somebody and helping them, or maybe it's doing a one-on-one tutoring or doing some consulting. You know, I may be stuck in the bed some days, but that doesn't mean that I cannot be effective and do something. And if I can do it, then I can teach it to somebody else and they can do it too. So, that's really where I'm at now is I write for pleasure and fun. I write to inform, to teach, and I hope that, for the rest of my days that I get to spend that time finding people, teaching people, and highlighting people, getting to find those voices and bring them forward with IPMNation.com and have that we have this crazy family of over 100 hosts from different walks of life all over the place. India, Ecuador, I mean, Canada. And you get that real true thing together, and we're going back in time almost to a time when media, was real newscasting, and it wasn't just a soundbite. And we're bringing that back in a 21st century platform that is conducive to the millennials, to the Generation Xers. I mean, this is how we all get our media. How many people actually have a landline anymore or cable TV? It's just not how people get their news. And, you know, the mainstream media doesn't keep up. We do. And that's the joy in it. Get to do that is incredible, and we need everybody to help preserve and protect that and keep the lawmakers off of our freedom on the internet and our ability to share news stories, whether they be fiction or fact, whether they be investigatory or exploratory into new age futures, whatever that may be, that there is a voice always able to carry those waves out there for free, that they really get free speech. That's something so vital to protect in this day and age when we see so many liberties being usurped by governments all around the world, by people all around the world. People are doing it to each other in the name of religion. We need to step that up. And if I can do it, Ling, here, so can anybody else. And I challenge any one of your listeners, they should be sharing your show. They should be sharing your book. They should be sharing the link, sharing the information. That is the only way that we are going to propagate change, or we're going to preserve and protect anything that we have right now. If you really care, you got to get out of the stands and off your couch. And it's great that they watch you, but they need to share you. They need to talk about you. And that's the only way that you're going to really get good, effective change, is they got to be equal players in the game. You're willing to put yourself out there. I'm willing to put myself out there, and countless others. We need the people that are listening, that are, you know, to buy our books, to share our stories, to share our videos, to share that information and educate others and show them how important it is as well to speak up no matter what their issue is. Every issue matters to somebody, right?
Right.
And we don't have the right to say mine's better than yours. So I have a disease. Does that make me better than you? No. It just means my perspective's a little bit different, and the areas that I'm going to be an expert in are going to be a little different than you. And we can teach each other. And that sharing of information and that education is what's needed in order to preserve and protect the future of a real, true, free press.
Your message is just is so great, and your perspective is so wonderful. I'm just sitting here in awe listening to you, and
Thank you.
I'm pumped up too, because
Good.
I'm thinking about it. Wow.
I've been called a rebel. I've been called a
I can make a
pitbull.
difference.
I've been called a few choice words, of course. But you know what they say, if you're not making enemies, you're certainly not rocking the boat very much. And a well-behaved woman never made history. That's one of my favorites, I think. And I'm leaving my legacy, I hope, is that I've left a pathway for others to always have free speech. That I've first and foremost been a good mom to my son. You know, I always said that, and that I, keep trying to make a difference and keep trying to speak out and speak up as much as you can until the day that you can't, because that day will happen. We live every day. We only die once.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us now, you have a website, and your webpage, I really love your webpage.
Thank you.
How we can get to it, and it has your book and your blog and your all the things you do.
My webmaster has been smacking me to not, because I haven't updated it, and I update the blog all the time, but I haven't updated my about page. But she built a beautiful page. My friend Jane, who is an incredible designer and webmaster, and she keeps everything up there on jencoffey.com, which is JENNCOFFEY, like the Green Mile. It sounds like the drink but spelled different. So jencoffey.com is where people can go, and people sometimes hire me through there because I'm a JP. I get to marry people. I love doing that. That's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. I do get to have my hand in a few different tide pools, if you will, and it's been an incredible life.
I hope that people will go to ipmnation.com and check out all of our great artists. And I know that there's this really great guy named Bill who's going to be broadcasting on there now. Do you think you might know him? And might be seeing you in the staff room there from time to time. But you know, I'm just like everybody else, and there's a contact page on jencoffey.com and also on ipmnation.com. There are a lot of great ways you can find me. I'm on Instagram as Jen Coffey. I mean, just feel free to Google me. Talk, you know, I don't bite. You can send me your questions, and I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I love getting to talk to you. I love the background. I'm a little jelly. I'd love to be on the beach right now.
Yeah, actually, what you're seeing, and I have a green screen, so I think everybody knows that. And so this is a shot off of my balcony, and heading back that way that's the Indian River, and across the Indian River is the Cape Canaveral Space Station. So we can stand on our balcony and we watch the launches. That's
awesome.
In fact, I think there's, and this is of course pre-recorded, but we usually get about 2 a week now, and they never get old.
That's awesome. That is really, really awesome. I love that stuff. I watch it online. That must be amazing to be there and feel the energy that comes off of these things as they're, you know, rising up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Energy can be transformed, but it cannot be destroyed. And it certainly is interesting.
Well, anyway, you told us every place we can find you, but the one place you didn't mention is on Facebook as well, and that's how I came in contact with you. Yep. And we got together. So there's plenty of places to find you, and we'll have all the links in this article that accompanies this video. But if somebody just sees a video by itself, remember it's jencoffey.com.
Yep, jencoffey.com. You can find me on Facebook as Jenny Coffey with a Y, or just go to ipmnation.com on Facebook or anywhere else, and you're going to be able to get in touch with me that way. Because Matt and I are partners, and we run ipmnation.com together, and it's our baby. So it's a great way to get in touch with either one of us.
Okay. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for coming on The American Vision, and thank you for such a great guest. And I just really enjoyed chatting with you. It's just been a wonderful time.
Thank you, sir, for everything and all that you do. And, you know, keep being a voice, keep being out there. We need more people like you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Jenny Coffey. I just had so much fun talking with her. What a great guest, and a great personality, and a great writer, and she's just involved in so many things. You just got to really check her out, and certainly go to her webpage, jencoffey.com, or look her up on Facebook, Jenny Coffey, and that's how I found her. And also watch the Matt Connerton radio show on ipmnation.com. Really a lot of fun. I just turn it on, I watch it. Even if I'm writing my book, I have it on, and I just it's so much fun and entertaining, and yet, you know, very informative, and get some very interesting guests. And it's not the same thing like when you watch one of the cable news shows or talk shows where they trot out the same tired people all the time who have the same tired talking points, you know. And so that's not really what we need or want. And anyway, I would also like you to get my book in 2020, Clear Vision for America. And I really poured my heart and soul in this to give you solutions. So I outlined the 20 worst problems of political establishment as imposed upon we the people, and I wrote common sense solutions for them. And I know a lot of people think, well, what does this guy know? Well, I don't know what I know either, but a lot of people have said a lot of nice things about it, so I really appreciate all of them. So anyway, thanks again, folks, and God bless you all. God bless our troops. Let's keep our troops safe, and keep our veterans in good health, and we have a lot of veterans that are homeless. We need to do something about that, and also, just be a voice in your community. Don't be afraid to talk. Like Jenny said, get involved and talk about things. So anyway, speaking of that, remember what I always say, where there is no vision, the people perish. And where the American people have no vision, the American people will perish. So God bless you all, and thank you for watching.